Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Off the Cuff with Adam Banks live stream. We will get started in about 6 minutes, so just stay tuned for that. Hi Valerie, what's going on?
jury in the above entitled act.
You are listening to Radio Lex, the voice of the people, WLXU 93.9 LPFM, Lexington, Kentucky.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of Lexington Community Radio or its board of directors. The views expressed are solely those of the programmers.
You are listening to Off the Cuff. Now, here's your host, Adam Banks.
Oh no, frost warning, that's not good. Welcome everybody to Off the Cuff. I am Adam Banks coming at you live from Lexington, Kentucky. Thank you for listening to the show and thank you for tuning in to WLXU 93.9 FM. In addition to listening on the radio, you can check out our Facebook live stream at Off the Cuff with Adam Banks, or you could stream the show live from the station website at radiolex.us to listen to us from anywhere in the entire world. It is October the 10th, 2024. Folks, I've always said this, there is power in television, and the Netflix documentary that has been sweeping the globe, and that is the Monsters TV show about the Menendez brothers, and it covers them brutally murdering their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, in their Beverly Hills mansion. There's a whole 10-episode miniseries called Monster on Netflix that covers that story. It was very well done. It was by Ryan Murphy. Season 1 of the Monster series was covering Jeffrey Dahmer, and it seems like this anthology, every single season he will cover a new major crime, a crime of a monstrous person in the next season, and so on and so on. But season 2 covers the Menendez brothers, and that was an infamous story from the late 80s all the way into the 90s, because the Menendez brothers trial was the very first trial to ever be televised across the United States. A lot of people think it was the OJ trial, but in fact, it was the Menendez trial that was the very first famous trial in America because it was televised. There were cameras all throughout the courtroom. And I have completed all 10 episodes of the Menendez show, and let me just say, it was fantastic. Ryan Murphy, without a doubt, is one of the most prolific, best producers in Hollywood, and he does a really good job of telling a story. Now, the series starts out with the brothers attending their parents' funeral, Jose and Kitty. And it shows them speaking at the funeral. It's very bizarre because Lyle plays this odd song at the funeral by Millie and Vanilli, whatever that group was. He played that weird song at their funeral. They both got up and they spoke at the funeral. And it was just very odd. And they were really good actors by getting up and pretending like they were in mourning because they were the one to kill their parents. But at first, when they attended the funeral, nobody knew that. Now, Eric and Lyle had a troubled home life. Throughout the show, it depicts what happened in that household of the Menendez family. And the prosecution tried to say that Eric and Lyle killed their parents to get money. They were set to inherit all of their parents' belongings, and it totaled to about $12 million. In 1989, that would be equivalent to about $25 million today. But the defense went on to say that Eric and Lyle killed their parents because it was no secret that they did admit to killing their parents later on. But the defense was not trying to get them they were not trying to convince a jury that they didn't kill their parents. They were trying to convince a jury that they killed their parents out of fear of safety of their own lives because they were being sexually molested by their father. And they went on to say that that happened for years and years early in both boys' life. And it happened all the way up to their teen years. And they eventually thought that their parents were going to kill them because they felt like they were such a disappointment to the family. And their lives was definitely not perfect. An abusive relationship also entailed with that, not just sexually, not just mentally, but also physically. I believe that the TV show really did a good job depicting both sides. It also gave the parents' POV of what it was like living with the boys. The boys were very ungrateful. They were very spoiled. It shows one scene where the dad bought Lyle a brand new like Mercedes Benz, and Lyle was upset because it was a Mercedes and he wanted a BMW. But it did a really good job showing that. The death scene in that TV show, where it actually showed the Menendez shooting their parents, was horrific. And it really did depict it in a way that only Ryan Murphy could depict it. Now, ultimately, we all know that the Menendez brothers did go on to get, to be not actually considered guilty. They were found guilty. They were found guilty by a grand jury. Now, at first, the jury was hung. It was a half and half jury where the women believed the Menendez brothers, but the men on the jury didn't believe the Menendez brothers. So it was a hung jury, which resulted in a mistrial, which means they had to start all over. And ultimately, it ended up being that they were found guilty. And it was a 12-0 verdict on the second time around. And it was just very bizarre that it goes from a hung jury to a unanimous 12-0 jury verdict, but that's just the way it is. There is power in television, like I said at the top of the hour, because now that this Netflix documentary is streaming and a lot of people are watching it, the Menendez brothers trial is in the forefront of everybody's mind. And now there is new evidence that has come to light. I've not looked much into what that evidence may be, but folks, there is a possibility that the trial might get a second look and the sentencing of Eric and Lyle Menendez might be reduced. They're currently serving a life sentence with no chance of parole. And that happened, they were convicted as guilty on February the 2nd, 1996. It was one of the most famous verdicts to ever be read. And they were sentenced on July 2nd, 1996. And folks, that was just 6 months later. But now, because of TV and how powerful TV is, if you think TV isn't powerful, let this be a great example of how powerful it is. Nobody thought of the Menendez brothers for the last 20, 25 years. But now, because of streaming and television and pop culture, now their case is starting to pick up steam again. And how about that, folks? The Menendez brothers trial might get another look and the boys might be set free. I say boys, they're actually grown men now. They went into prison as teenagers and now they're both in their 40s or 50s. And like I said, that was one of the most famous verdicts ever read in a courtroom. And folks, since the Menendez trial, there has been a lot of famous cases tried in America that has been televised. Court TV is a TV show that existed because of the Menendez trial, and since then, they have showed other famous court cases on that channel. And I started thinking of some of the most famous verdicts ever read in the courtroom. Some of the most famous verdicts that captivated us as a society and that still lives in pop culture. The Menendez brothers verdict definitely being one of them. But what I have done, folks, is I have created a list here of what I feel like is some of the most famous real-life court case verdicts ever read in court. And these verdicts that I'm going to play for you, I feel like really did captivate us as a society, and it does still stay very relevant in pop culture. So we are going to start with probably one that you already know is an obvious one, and that is the verdict of O.J. Simpson back in 1995 when he was found not guilty of a double homicide of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ron Goldman. Take a listen at the famous verdict read in court in 1995 where O.J. Simpson was let go and set free from those murders.
All right, Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
Court of California, County of Los Angeles, in the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097211. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 186.
Wow.
A felony upon Nicole Brown Simpson, a human being, as charged in count 1 of the.
All right, so he was not guilty on the first verdict. Now, everybody already knows at this point he's not going to be found guilty for the murder of Ron Goldman. But he's not off the hook yet, but he's about to be.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant Orenthal James Simpson not guilty of the crime of murder in violation.
And folks, this set off a huge reaction in the United States. Both sides, whether you were for him or against him, definitely were vocal about it. You can hear crying in the background from the Goldman family. And folks, after your verdict is read and you are found not guilty, you are free to go. You are free to go. You don't have to go back to jail. Any ankle monitoring bracelet that you've got on, it gets taken off. And there you go, folks. Yes, he was let out of the handcuffs, and for the first time in like a year, O.J. Simpson walked out of the courtroom and went back to his house that day. One of the most famous verdicts ever read in the history of our court system. Okay, next, folks, on my list, I would like to talk about the people of the state of California versus Michael Jackson in 2005. The pop icon was acquitted and found not guilty of child molestation charges after a highly publicized trial. This case garnered worldwide attention, obviously, because of who it was, and it reflected the intense scrutiny and the fascination surrounding Michael Jackson's life and career. So this is the moment when Michael Jackson, when everybody thought he was guilty for the child molestation charges, this is the verdict that found him not guilty. He was found not guilty. Take a listen.
Count 1 verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment, dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 8. Count 2 verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act of.
Now, she continues to go through all of the charges, and he was found not guilty on every single charge. And as she was announcing the verdict, the crowd was going wild. His fans were standing outside of the courtroom. They were listening to the verdict. And one woman was even releasing a white dove out of a cage every time a charge would be found not guilty. And of course, she let out all of the doves because on every charge he was found not guilty. And she just continues on and on and on, saying not guilty for every single charge. All right, next up on my list, folks, is one of the most famous verdicts ever read in court here in the United States is the George Zimmerman trial back in 2013. George Zimmerman was acquitted and found not guilty of second-degree murder in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, who was an unarmed African-American teenager. The verdict ignited nationwide protest and was a major factor in the growth of the Black Lives Matter movement. It was because of this case right here is why the Black Lives Matter movement really grew and blew up. It was this case right here that caused a lot of riots in the United States. He was found not guilty. George Zimmerman, he was a police officer who shot and killed a black teenager for no reason. He was an unarmed teenager, and George Zimmerman shot him. Not just shot him, but killed the boy. And here he is getting found not guilty. And folks, remember, it was this right here that caused all of the riots and the Black Lives Matter movement to grow.
In the Circuit Court of the 18th Judicial Circuit in or for Seminole County, Florida, State of Florida versus George Zimmerman. Verdict, we the jury find George Zimmerman not guilty. So say we all foreperson.
And
Your side want to pull the jury? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, ladies, I'm sorry. As your juror number is being called, please answer whether this is your verdict. Juror B76, is this your verdict?
and they go on and they go to every juror and they just make sure that this is your verdict that you wanted. And every juror there says, yes, that was my verdict. A not guilty verdict. And then the jury is released. I think when a jury is on a trial for a really, really long time, they want to get home because they've been away from their families, their job, their life. So a lot of the jury deliberations don't take a long time because guess what? The ball is in the jury's court. They can take all the time in the world they need, or they can take all the little time in the world they need. And usually the deliberations, after a year trial even, are so, usually after something like that, they're just ready to go home. And folks, there is another one here that I want to talk about. It is the Casey Anthony verdict. Casey Anthony was acquitted of murder of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee. The case dominated media headlines, with many expressing outrage at the verdict, sparking debates on the legal system and media influence. She was accused of murdering her baby, and the evidence in this case was overwhelming. And it was the verdict that caused a lot of controversy because guess what, folks? Even after this overwhelming verdict of this cold-blooded murder act done on a child, here is Casey Anthony's verdict, where she is found not guilty in the death of her newborn baby, or her 2-year-old daughter.
The Circuit Court for the 9th Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida. State of Florida versus Casey Marie Anthony. As to case number 2008 CF 15606-0. As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 5th day of July, 2011, signed for person. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, did it at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed for person.
And there you go, folks. And of course, she was found guilty on lying to the police, but that didn't cause any type of uproar, because what would have put her behind bars for life was the murder of her baby, but she was found not guilty. And folks, there are others that I don't have time to get to, other verdicts read that were famous. The Roe versus Wade 1973 verdict, where abortion was made legal in this country. That was a huge one. Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, which is when the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously ruled that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. There was the McDonald's hot coffee case in 1994. That's where McDonald's was found liable and had to pay $2.7 million in punitive damages to a woman named Stella Liebeck, who dropped hot coffee in her lap. And then there was the United States versus Nixon verdict, when there was a unanimous ruling against Nixon, which ultimately led him to resigning as the president of the United States. But folks, that is a list that I felt like was some of the most famous verdicts ever read in the United States court system. I hope you enjoyed. Folks, we have a great show ahead of you today. Stick with us. You are listening to Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. We'll be right back.
I'm Dan, host of Musical Architectures, and you are listening to Radio Lex, the voice of the people, WLXU 93.9 LPFM, Lexington.
Radio Lex only exists in our community because of the generosity of supporting members like Aaron Mudd. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to the voice of the people. To learn how you can become a supporting member, visit radiolex.us/donate.
Are you in the right lane? Should you be? On roads with two lanes going the same direction, the right-hand lane should be used for driving and the left should be used for passing. Vehicles that use the left lane for driving interfere with the natural flow of traffic and create backups. On roads with multiple lanes going the same direction, the same rules apply. The far left lane should only be used for passing. The slowest moving traffic, including large loads, should use the far right lane. Hi, this is Deborah Hensley with State Farm, reminding you to be a good neighbor and be mindful of your lane when driving and passing.
Let's go places safely, Lexington. Has your drive got you riled up? Are you running late? Is everyone in your way? Driving while impatient or upset increases your likelihood of a crash. Take a deep breath. Focus on where you are, not where you need to be. Check your mirrors. Relax your grip on the steering wheel. If your emotions are still getting in the way, get off the road. Get out of your car, stretch, or take a quick walk. In 5 years, you probably won't remember this drive at all. Hi, I'm Kim Sweezy from Toyota, reminding you to take a moment to cool down and get where you're going safely.
That's what I love about Sunday.
Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Cuff. Adam Banks here with you. We know that Sunday is a big day for churchgoers, but it's also a big day for all football lovers. It's the big day for football, and if you're a Bengals fan, it's not a very bright day for you. The Bengals are 1-4. They lost their last game against the Ravens in a hard loss, 41-38. They played the Giants this Sunday for some Sunday night football action, so we'll see what they can do there. But folks, football season is in full swing. Football season means that the weather is getting cooler, school is back in session, and of course, it's time to sing along with your favorite NFL fight songs. And that's what I would like to talk about, folks, because I brought up the Bengals. And even though they are very, very poor in football this season, they have one hell of a team song. I love this. You don't hear it enough. You usually hear the Guns N' Roses Welcome to the Jungle, which is not an official NFL team song like this one. This is the Cincinnati Bengals team song officially. It's called the Bengals Growl. It was written by an unknown author, but it was written in the 60s or 70s. It's a traditional fight song for the Cincinnati Bengals. And they usually play this at the beginning or after the game. I don't know how much they do it today. I don't go to many Bengals games. When I was there, I didn't hear it, but maybe I wasn't really paying attention. But this is the official Bengals fight song. But folks, the Bengals isn't the only NFL team that has a great team song. There are a ton of great NFL fight songs for NFL teams. Most NFL teams possess some sort of official sing-along song, and it helps rally the fans together. However, not all NFL teams have an official song. They just kind of steal one from the mainstream media. So I have created a list here of some of the best NFL team songs throughout time, and on this list, I haven't included every NFL team because obviously some NFL teams don't even have an NFL song. And then some that do, it's still not even good. So I'm not going to put it on the list. So I've created a list here of the teams that I feel like have the best NFL song or NFL team song. And of course it starts with the Bengals. But the Bengals isn't the only one, folks. Next up on my list is the Pittsburgh Steelers with this song, Here We Go. All right, this song was first released in 1994 with various updates over the years. It has been a staple at Steeler games and has undergone revisions to mention current players and highlight the team's success over different seasons. The original version became so popular that it is still associated with the Steelers fan culture. This is the original song by Roger Wood. Woo! So obviously this isn't the original. It says Coach Tomlin. But this is one of those where they just kind of changed a few words of the original. A great team song for an NFL team. But folks, there are other great team songs for NFL teams, like this one right here, Fly, Eagles, Fly, for the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate the Eagles. I hate everything about them. I hate this dirty song. But if I didn't hate them, the team, as much as I do, I would probably say, you know what? This isn't a bad song. It's an annoying song if you're not an Eagles fan. But I can see why it's so endearing to Eagles fans. It was written by Charles Borelli and Roger Counterland in 1960. It's known as the Eagles' victory song. And it was written in the same year that the Eagles won their last championship before the Super Bowl era. It's sung by fans at home games, especially after touchdowns, and represents the pride of the fan base. These lyrics focus on the team's determination to soar over their opponents. And then they chant their E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles, Eagles, Eagles. Blah, make me want to gag. All right, next up on my list, folks, is one of the best NFL team songs, is from Chicago with their song, Bear Down, Chicago Bears. This song was written by Jerry Downs, and it was a fight song created by the Bears' victory in the 1940 NFL Championship. Its lyrics encourage the team to bear down and maintain their toughness. It is one of the oldest and most recognizable fight songs in the entire NFL. Chicago is such a sports town. They've got the Bears, they've got the Bulls, they got the White Sox, they've got the Cubs. If you are a sports lover, Chicago would be a great city to live in. Their football team hasn't been much in many years. I know they got a lot of pop culture references thanks to Saturday Night Live with that whole Da Bears skit. But some say this is the best NFL team song of all teams in the entire NFL. But folks, I don't agree with that. I feel like one of the best songs is from the San Diego Superchargers, and it is this one right here. The San Diego Superchargers no longer exist, but they had a great song that still lives on today. It's from 1979. And it was written by Jerry Marcelino and David Seif. Take a listen. This is an upbeat disco theme song, and it was a tribute to the team's high-powered offense. Although the team has since relocated to Los Angeles, California, the song remains iconic among Charger fans. So, even though the team moved, the fans still love the song. And why wouldn't you? It's a great one. You gotta love it. All right, folks, moving on down my list is one of the best NFL team songs throughout time is going to come from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is from 1979, and it was a play off of the baseball song that they have for their baseball team. Often known as Hey Hey Tampa Bay, this fight song was written when the Bucs were gaining momentum in their early years of existence. It's still used in some variations to rally the fans during games. It's not used a lot, but from time to time they'll play it, which kind of even makes it more special when you hear it every now and then. It almost makes it feel like a bigger game when you hear this song come on. Tampa Bay, they got a lot of momentum going in the modern era when Tom Brady decided to come out of retirement and go to Tampa Bay. Out of all teams, he went to Tampa Bay and proved that he was the greatest of all time because he took a team like that and a team who hadn't been to the Super Bowl in many, many, many years, took them to the Super Bowl and won one. All right, folks, next on my list is one of the best NFL team songs in the league is from the Miami Dolphins. It reminds me of an old commercial of singing about cereal or an old toy. It was written by Lee Hoffman in 1972. This song became famous as the Dolphins went undefeated that season and won the Super Bowl. I could see why there was a song written about them if they won the Super Bowl that year. This song features catchy lyrics celebrating the team's success and encouraging fan support. It is still played at Dolphins games and remains a symbol of their historic achievement. Miami Dolphins, number one. They're certainly not number one anymore, though. All right, folks, coming down on my list as one of the best NFL team songs in the history of the league is, we'll see, do we have time to play two more? I'm getting the little flasher here that I'm getting ready to get a hard break. But you know what? I love you guys so much. We're going to continue this. Denver Broncos is going to be on my list for their fight song. Now this is an old traditional theme song, or an old traditional fight song that the team has. It's got an unknown author, and it's been used over the year with many different versions. But it was written, dated back into the 1970s. And I've got one more to play for you folks, and this will conclude my list as one of the best NFL team songs in the league, and that is going to belong to the Atlanta Falcons. While this song is not as well known as other NFL team songs, various versions have emerged over the years, each song celebrating the team's resilience and fan pride. The original song was used as a rallying cry during home games, though its presence in games has varied over time. I love it when an NFL team creates their own catchy, original team song. And those folks are some of the best. I feel like each one of those deserve to be on the list. If there is one that you feel like that was on the list, or if you felt like that should have been on the list that wasn't, please put it on the show thread. I would love to talk about it. But folks, that pretty much wraps up another segment of Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. We will be right back after these words.
You are listening to Radio Lex, the voice of the people, WLXU 93.9 LPFM, Lexington, Kentucky.
Let's go places safely, Lexington. Are you driving? Are you distracted? Over 24,000 collisions and 700 fatalities occurred last year in Kentucky. The number one factor in all these collisions? Not paying attention. Texting and fidgeting with mobile devices caused more crashes last year than drunk drivers. Enable safe driving settings on your phone.
Oh, Nikki, what's up? Good to see you. I didn't think you was going to be on today.
You are driving and cannot be disturbed. Hi, my name is Sue from Toyota, reminding you to put your phone away and put your eyes on the road.
You don't have to contribute to Radio Lex to continue listening, but we hope that you will support your friends and neighbors as they create original, hyper-local programming 24/7 in English on WLXU 93.9 FM and in Spanish on WLXL 95.7 FM. It takes a great community to make great community radio. Radio Lex can't do it without you. Support the voice of the people today. Visit radiolex.us/donate and support Lexington's community radio right now.
If you operate a motor vehicle in Kentucky, you are required by law to carry minimum liability insurance. If you don't maintain the minimum insurance, your registration can be revoked, you can be fined, or even spend time in jail. Hi, this is Scott with State Farm, reminding you to be a good neighbor, keep yourself covered, and obey Kentucky's auto insurance laws.
Radio Lex only exists in our community because of the generosity of supporting members like Susie Esquivel. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to the voice of the people. To learn how you can become a supporting member, visit radiolex.us/donate.
The bills make me wanna throw your hands.
Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Cuff. Adam Banks here with you. I don't know how I left this one off the list. On our last segment, we were talking about the best NFL team songs. I left off Shout from the Buffalo Bills. Somehow I just overlooked it on my list, but it definitely belongs on there. This is by the Shakin' Bones. The Bills are a little wishy-washy. They look good sometimes, and then other times I watch them and I'm like, guys, you got to get it together. See, even the song says they're going to get it together. But yes, absolutely, folks. This one is a great NFL team song. Love it, love it, love it so much. Folks, today's national holiday is World Mental Health Day. It is celebrated on October the 10th, every October, every year on this day. And it is an understanding of mental health. Mental health has come a long way since the early 90s when the World Federation of Mental Health officially established this day. Our self-awareness and sensitivity towards mental health have changed things for the better. Our language surrounding mental health has improved as well. A lot of the times, people, well, I know back in the 90s and before, you were considered weak if you admitted to having depression, if you admitted to having any sadness. You were looked at as just not being a strong person. You were looked at as being a weak, meek person. And we know that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be unhappy. And it's not your fault all of the time. that you are like that. Sometimes there is something going on that you cannot control. And because of mental health awareness, more people are sensitive to the topic to know that it isn't just something that you can control. Sometimes it's out of your control. Have you ever wondered sometimes why you're not happy, even though you should be? And you start blaming yourself, that you just start complaining about things that just you shouldn't be, but it's not your fault. Sometimes there's things going up in our head that we cannot explain. And it's okay to be not okay. It's just the best thing for you to do is to get help. In my personal opinion, is to give it all to the Lord. But folks, there are some surprising facts about mental health. It is believed in certain cultures that mental health problems are caused by spirit possession. That's one way to look at it. Globally, 1 in 4 people will need mental health care in their lives. More than 43 million Americans battle with mental health. Depression among youth has risen from 5.9% to 8.2% since 2012. I would say a lot of that is the spike in social media. Most Americans lack access to proper health care treatment. And that is why World Mental Health is important. It's a chance for us to identify the problem. It's a chance for people to share their pain. It's a chance for people to seek out proper treatment. So folks, if you are going through a difficult time and you are struggling upstairs in the head and you don't know why, there's a good chance that it's out of your control. So seek the proper treatment that will help you. Whether that be medicine, whether that be therapy, whether that be just talking to somebody, going to a doctor, however it is, you do you. Nikki says on the show thread, for those seeking help, please remember that not every therapist is one size fits all. Sometimes you have to visit different ones to find one that suits you, and that is so true. A lot of the times people go and they see a therapist and it didn't work for them because the therapist was just not their cup of tea, and they just write off all therapists from there on out. But as Nikki says, it's not an all-size-fit-one treatment. Some therapists work more for others than another one does. I might relate better speaking to a man than a woman, and vice versa. You might feel more comfortable speaking to a woman versus a man. So, and it just depends, really not even gender. It just might depend on the person that you talk to. So if you do decide to seek therapy, do be mindful of that. But folks, I feel like that this is a great place to take Off the Cuff's Song of the Week break. And as promised, I'm going to play the song that the Menendez brothers played at their parents' funeral. It's called I'm Gonna Miss You. A very odd choice to play at the death of your parents' funeral after they were brutally murdered. But this is by Milli Vanilli, All or Nothing. We'll be back after the song. Whew. Hey, thanks, Nikki. See you later. Hey, Will, what's up, man? I did a segment a while ago that you'll like. I went over who has the best team song in the NFL. I played the Bengals growl on there. I played the Buffalo Bills has a good song. The San Diego Chargers, back when they were in San Diego, had a great song. So you're going to want to listen to that second segment. Nice. And by the way, I love your podcast, man. I'm going to mention that actually when I get back on the air, that people need to check out your show. You can see where this would be a awkward song to play at your parents' funeral, but that is what they played, and I felt like it was just appropriate to play it for Off the Cuff's Song of the Week break. And I was talking to my buddy Will on the show thread. Him and his cousin have a Reds podcast, and it is called Will and Devin's Redcast, I believe it is. If it's not, I will confirm with him what that's called, but it's on Spotify. I'll share it to the Off the Cuff page. Folks, it's got some really great Reds coverage. It's talking all about all things Reds. They're going to be talking about the new Reds manager they just hired. They just did a Pete Rose legacy episode. So a lot of great content on there. But folks, here is a great event coming up on October the 20th from 1 to 6. If you like scavenger hunts, this is for you. We here at Radio Lex are sponsoring a zombie crawl, and you don't even have to leave your house to do this. You can do it from your phone. Prizes, brains, fun, brains, and more brains. Get on your phone. Teams must register to play, up to 5 members per team, and you can do that by going to radiolex.us/zombie, and that is on October the 20th from 1 to 6. It's our zombie crawl, scavenger hunt, and radio special. So we are having a radio special as well, where we are putting on kind of a radio drama like they used to do back in the day on the radio, and it will be performed. Some of the performers will be characters from Radio Lex, and I was just asked to play a character for one of those performances, so I would love for you to tune in to that. But folks, we're going to take a quick break because we have one more segment to go. Stick with us. We will be right back.
Avoid tickets by keeping your vehicle registration current. To renew your registration, visit your county clerk's office and present a photo ID, expiring registration, and proof of insurance. You'll get a sticker for your license plate, and you'll be set for another year. Hi, this is Annie with State Farm, reminding you to be a good neighbor. Keep yourself updated and obey Kentucky's insurance and registration laws.
Let's go places safely, Lexington. Has your drive got you riled up? Are you running late? Is everyone in your way? Driving while impatient or upset increases your likelihood of a crash. Take a deep breath. Focus on where you are, not where you need to be. Check your mirrors. Relax your grip on the steering wheel. If your emotions are still getting in the way, get off the road. Get out of your car, stretch, or take a quick walk. In 5 years, you probably won't remember this drive at all. Hi, I'm Erica Nims from Toyota, reminding you to take a moment to cool down and get where you're going safely.
Welcome back, everybody, to Off the Cuff. Adam Banks here with you. Last segment of the hour, Will corrected me from the show thread. He said that the name of his podcast, they renamed it to Red Hot. Red Hot, a Cincinnati Reds podcast. They're going to be dropping a new episode this weekend. I love the name Red Hot. But speaking of Red Hot, folks, what about those University of Kentucky Wildcats coming off of a bye week this week and also coming off of a win against Ole Miss? Who would have thought that Vanderbilt was going to be a big game for Kentucky, because Vanderbilt is coming off of some say the biggest upset win in the last 20, 30 years of college football. They defeated number 1 Alabama. That was an unbelievable win. Vandy was going insane. They were carrying the goalpost all the way downtown all the way downtown Nashville, and they deserve it. Why not? Your program hasn't had a win like that in years. You deserve to celebrate beating Alabama, the number 1 team in the country, folks. That is insane. And all I'm going to say is Nick Saban, he ain't there no more. Nick Saban, Alabama, get used to this. You're going to have to get used to losing to teams like Vanderbilt. You're not non-human anymore. You were with Saban. Saban would have come back and beat Vanderbilt without a doubt. Even if there was 20 seconds to go and Alabama was down 6, Saban would have found a way to win, but he's gone. So you're going to have to get used to this. Let this be your first of many that you're going to have to get used to. And I love that it was Vandy, because Vandy's always the joke of the SEC, and Vandy and Bama's the powerhouse. So it's very fitting that the powerhouse gets knocked off by the joke in the SEC. But folks, we are playing that joke this Saturday. That is going to be a very exciting game. I cannot wait to watch that game. But folks, also this weekend, you're going to get a lot of Kentucky sports in your system, because Big Blue Madness is also happening this weekend. It's a big one because this marks the first Big Blue Madness in a new era, where head coach Mark Pope will be taking reins of the program. It officially starts. I feel like Big Blue Madness is the official start of the Kentucky basketball season. And I think that there'll be a lot of excitement just because there is simply a new coach there. It will take place October the 11th and will feature the introduction of the 2024-2025 men's basketball and women's basketball team. It will start at 7 p.m. And if you cannot make it out to Rupp-Arena to watch that, it will be aired on the SEC Network. Folks, I have yet to go over and preview the University of Kentucky's basketball team, and I want to go over their schedule in detail. I want to go over what I feel like Kentucky fans have to look forward to, but unfortunately, we are out of time, and I won't be able to do that today, so I'm going to save that segment for another time, and it will certainly be before the season officially begins with the first official game. But what I want to do in that segment is kind of go through the schedule in a nutshell, tell you the games I think they'll win, I think they'll struggle with, I think they'll lose, and I'm going to give you an overall review of how I feel like Mark Pope is going to do. So sometime or another, before the University of Kentucky's basketball team officially starts, I will do that. But you've got the pep rally to look forward to this weekend with Big Blue Madness, and also you got a great Kentucky football game to look forward to as well. But folks, that pretty much wraps up another episode of Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. If you liked what you heard today, you'll probably like our previous episodes. All episodes are archived on podcast. We are on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you stream your favorite podcast. You can follow the show on social media at Off the Cuff with Adam Banks. You can follow me on social media at The Adam Banks. We release new episodes every Thursday from 4 to 5 right here on WLXU 93.9 FM, which means we will be back same time, same place. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Off the Cuff. I am the King of Radio, Adam Banks, and I will catch you down the road. Good versus practice review, filling down. Oh, Joshua 1-9, yes. Yes. Oh, man, I wish I would have seen that before before I logged off. I would have told everybody. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I love every one of you. See you next